So hey, listen, if this is your first time here, I want to welcome you to the Tiffany Bethea podcast. Whether you are watching our live recording here on Facebook, whether you're watching the replay here or also on YouTube, that's right. We're pushing the message out, y'all. We're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, we're on SoundCloud. So if you love video, you want to be a part of the live conversation, make sure you come on over to the page Wednesdays at about 12:30, right, Eastern Standard Time. Or of course, if you just want to take the podcast with you as you're running, as you're cooking, you can listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, or SoundCloud. This is the place where we talk about being the bold, fearless CEO of your life first, and also your purpose, your business, your ministry. And I'm just super excited for today's show. All right. So I am picking up a series today that I started on in the summer. Okay. I started a series in the summer, and then we took a turn and began to talk about some different things. But now I want to come back to this series. And I believe that it's very fitting because we're preparing to go into a new year, a new decade, all this great stuff. And so I believe that if you are looking to level up, right, in your spirit and your soul and your body and your business in 2020, that these kingdom principles are absolutely going to be a blessing to you. All right. And so let me greet some folks who are watching live. Hey, Michael Stegall. Hey, Uniquely Maggie. Hey, guys, what's going on? What's going on? I'm so excited to have you guys as a part of the conversation. So before we jump into today's topic, talking about the Kingdom CEO principle of resilience, of course, we always start off our show with pop culture and the pulpit segment. So if you're new here, pop culture and the pulpit is the segment where we talk about news, current events, sometimes social media scrollings, which is what we're talking about today, and things that are going on from a kingdom perspective. Okay. And so I have seen this meme floating around my timeline all week, and I wanted to know if you guys could relate. So I'm going to post it. I'm going to push this up. Now, for those of you who are simply listening to the podcast, you can't see this picture, but the picture that I shared here is an image which has Kanye West, Pharrell, and P. Diddy at his 50th birthday party. And so next to Diddy is Jay-Z with a very interesting expression on his face. Okay. and so the caption here is, "This is exactly why I asked who all gonna be there." Now, I've seen memes that has had some other, phrases and quotes very similar along these same lines of outgrowing people. And so I want to know from you guys, what is your experience? What has been your experience when it comes to outgrowing people? Outgrowing people, right? How difficult has it been for you to encounter them when you needed to encounter them? Or what has it been like for you when you, and let me just say this meme, we don't know what is going on. I am not going to make an attempt to speak on Jay-Z's behalf because I have no idea. He could have just honestly been thinking about something. And y'all know how the photographers can catch the craziest moments, and he could have literally turned around the second after this picture was taken and jumped in the conversation. So we don't know. I'm not going to speculate or make this so much about him, but more so about the concept that it kind of raises, and everybody's response to it and what they seem to think that it, is. And that's about, being around people who maybe you've just outgrown, or being in spaces that used to be comfortable, but they're no longer comfortable for you. What has that been like for you? I want you guys to kind of chime in and, share your thoughts with me. Let me know what that's been like for you. I know that for all of us, outgrowing people, outgrowing settings, outgrowing things can be very difficult. And I think that for me, and I want to share this with you too. I think one of the things we have to really do is give ourselves the grace to grow and not always be the same. I feel like sometimes we have in our minds that, well, who am I? Who am I to all of a sudden want to be different, or am I acting different, or am I acting funny? And I think that we have a skewed view of the loyalty, that I'm supposed to be loyal to things to the point where it sacrifices my spirit or my soul or my energy. And I think that that's not the case. It doesn't have to be me acting funny. I can still be loving. I can still be kind. I can still be cordial, but just not be in the same place. So Shanice says, a few years ago, it was extremely hard, but now I know it's necessary. Yeah, I feel you. I can so relate to that. I can remember, quick story, I can remember holding on to a relationship, to a friendship. And I just had known that person so long. I was not comfortable letting go of that relationship. I just was like, no, this is this is my friend. And even though I could feel the friction and the drama, I just was not comfortable in my spirit letting that person go until I just got tired and said, I think something has to be different. But also until the Lord spoke to me so plainly one time and said, look, I have graced you for this next season of where I'm taking you, but I have not graced her for that space with you. And so if you drag her and continue to hold on to her in this season, it's actually going to be a detriment to her because she's not covered. You are going to be covered. And once I realized that, wow, I'm actually being selfish. Me holding on to this person is for me, but I may be inviting harm into her life, more warfare, more specifically, right, into her life, because God has graced me for this next season, not necessarily her. Then I felt like I could release that person in love, in peace, and not feel like I'm releasing you because you aren't good enough or any of that. But it was just, this is where God has ordained for our paths to split. And I know he's going to grace you for where he's taking you, and he's gracing me for where he's taking me. And so I felt more comfortable and at peace with releasing that person. And I still have to encounter, I still have to interact. I still see that person not nearly as frequently as I did, but I think the first couple times I probably was looking like Jay-Z in this meme, right? Like I said, we don't know what he's thinking, but I was definitely looking like, how's it going to be, like awkward? We don't have the same level of conversation we did before previously, but now, that's not the case. The ease is just there. And so I just thought this meme was hilarious because I think that it's funny, but it is something that we can really all relate to on some level where, you step into settings and you like, this is just not my vibe anymore. This is just not my flow. And I think here's the kingdom perspective, right, with this whole thing, is to make sure that as we outgrow things, that we have the proper mindset, that we're not looking down on people like, they're not at our level. I see my up leveling and my splitting from people more as paths going different ways, and not like, oh, I'm raising above you and you're not, because I don't think that that's a godly perspective. I don't think that's the kingdom perspective. Certainly, even when our mindset may be at a different level and all that, but I think that everybody's just on their own journey. And I've just really, you've probably heard me say this so much, I'm just so big on giving people grace, right? Giving myself grace, giving other people grace for their journey. And so I never look at it like, well, I'm better and you ain't there yet. I'm like, nope, I have reached a place in my journey that you haven't maybe encountered that space yet. And, it may be causing us to part in this season. So that's what I wanted to share about that. That's our pop culture and the pulpit segment. I want you to comment. Of course, we love the after party. Come on over to our private exclusive group. kingdombosslive.com will take you there. It's right on Facebook. And those of you who are in the group, I want to hear your comments. I want to know what you think about this. Have you experienced this? Can you relate? What's it like when you go into segments, when you go into settings where you're having to kind of interact with your old life, things that you were into, people that you could relate to? What's that like for you? All right. So I wanted to just talk about that. So let's get into our actual topic for the day. Okay. Today we are talking about resilience. Now, as I shared, if you have not had a chance to catch some of the other parts of this series from earlier this year, I want to definitely encourage you to go on over to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. We have talked about some really, really great things. We've talked about integrity of heart and vision and what does God say about who you are. And we've just talked about some really great things. And so we're going to continue in the series and finish it out right now into the beginning of the year. And today, how much more fitting, I thought, as we are wrapping up this year and going into a new one, I want to talk about resilience. Whew. I want to talk about resilience. Now, I'm a word nerd, and if you're new here, you will learn that about me very fast, but I want to read the actual definition of resilience so that we are working from, the same frame here. Like what are we talking about when we are talking about resilience? Okay. So here we go. Number one, able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. Able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. All right. And the second one is able to recoil or spring back into shape after bending, stretching, or being compressed. Now, the interesting thing is this second definition, it says that it's really more so talking about an object or some tangible, but I really believe that it's fitting for us in our hearts. I don't know about you, but I feel like there have been times where my heart has been bent. And that resilience muscle that I had felt has allowed it to literally spring back into the God designed shape, that it would still function the way that God designed, right? And so let's talk about that a little bit. Listen, I don't know about y'all, but when you really look back over everything you've experienced this year, life has thrown some things at you, but you're still here. I mean, can we just stop and celebrate that? Can we just stop and celebrate that? The fact that you are still standing, the fact that you still have your right mind, and the fact that your heart is still in the right place, And I want to encourage you that if you do feel a little beat down from this year, that, it's been tough, Tiffany, I want to encourage you to take some time and spend some time in the presence of God and allow him to refresh and to refill and pour back into you. When Jesus was, first of all, led into the wilderness to be tempted, and he passed that test, and it is written, and then the enemy left him. Immediately ministering angels came to minister to him. And I want you to know that the same is available to you, that even if it was God testing you this year or allowing you to have your character proven in the refining fire, okay, I can relate. Even in that, God will still send his spirit, his ministering angels, to really rebuild those areas where your heart has been broken, where you've been discouraged, where you've been fatigued. So I really want to encourage you. Don't think that just because, trials are part of life, or, maybe this test is making me stronger. Yeah, absolutely. But still allow God to rebuild you. All right. So I don't know who that was for, but I just wanted to share that. But they say that, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond. How many of you believe that? I want you to actually drop a comment. How many of you believe that life is really majorly about not just what happens to you, but how you respond. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about this resilience muscle. If you are going to be the CEO of your life, as you were called to be in the beginning, right? He gave us dominion, he gave us power. And before we can have dominion over everything else, we've got to have dominion over ourselves, certainly. But also, if you are an entrepreneur, right, this is a powerful principle that you need, is the ability to spring back after life has thrown challenges and difficulties at you. And the good news about resilience is that it is a muscle that can be developed. To be honest, and it's funny because in the definition right here, it says that you know how like they give the definition, but then it's like a sentence, like use it in a sentence. The sentence they gave are babies are generally far more resilient than new parents realize. Interesting. And children, people also say that children are far more resilient than adults. Have you heard that? And I think it's because as we mature, as we age, we lose some things. I really think that all the parents out there, all the aunties and you know, all that, if you really think about the kids in your life, you really look at how we are in our natural being. There's some really amazing things that we have the natural tendency to do that we lose over time. You know, I talked about one earlier in this series where we talk about vision and we talk about kids' ability to make pretend. Let me say something. My niece and my son will have like a whole make pretend session. I was with my niece one time recently, and I think I sat somewhere and she was like, no, don't sit there. That's my car. You're sitting in my car. And I was like looking like, I don't see it. I don't see a car, but she sees a car in her mind's eye. That's a powerful ability that we lose. If you talk to people who are successful, they use that. It is the same thing as make believe. You have to see it in your mind so strong, right? So that's one of them, but also this ability to be resilient. I noticed that with my son, like, now this is going to sound like robbery, but all the good parents out there know that sometimes it just be like this. But I remember one time, like, my son, I had to say no to something or I couldn't do something for him and I felt so bad. And then I was like, well, you want some ice cream? And I'm going to tell you something. He was upset about whatever, but that ice cream sure made it better. He was like, okay. And so that ability to just spring back and be like, you know what, I was hurt about that, but shoot, this ice cream is going to make it better. And so I really believe that we lose some of that. And so I hear you, Holy Spirit. I don't even think it's about necessarily developing the muscle as it is getting back to when that place was already strong, when you were already naturally more resilient. Right. And I'll tell you one thing. I think that, that's why the Bible tells us to be like little children so we can inherit the kingdom, that children are naturally hopeful. So even when something goes wrong, I think they're able to bounce back and be a little more resilient because they're still generally hopeful. Their outlook on the world is still just more positive. But over time, let's be honest, all the disappointments and the jobs that you didn't like and the relationships that didn't work and the bills that you couldn't pay, they begin to shift your perspective. And so it's not that you don't believe, but you just have more evidence supporting the negative than you did when you were little. But here's where the power of the Holy Spirit comes in to literally refresh our minds. That's what I believe he means when he says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. As you're going to have to let go of some of the things you've learned and experienced that have shaped your perspective in a different way than what I say. Because I say I've created you for victory and abundance, but those experiences are trying to tell you that maybe struggle is just always going to be a part of your life, or maybe it's just always going to be this way. And so you got to renew that part of your mind that's saying the very opposite of what God is saying. Are you catching me? And let me say this, your experiences are very real. What you've gone through is absolutely not a dismissal of those things, but it's to say that a greater power exists, that I serve a God who is greater than the divorce, than the bankruptcy, than the molestation, than whatever, than the job loss, than the breakup, than whatever. That thing was real, but I know that the God I serve is real and more powerful and can bring me through this greater. And so that's where you have to train your mind and to get and to take, watch this. This is one thing I've learned and becoming resilient. I realize that when I walk away from this adversity or this challenging experience, I need to take the lesson with me. Look, don't completely forget the experience. Okay, we want you to remember something because we don't want you to necessarily go through it again if it's preventable, right? And so I'm going to take the lesson with me. I'm going to remember that this is how I got into this situation the last time, or this is what contributed, and this is what I can do differently next time. But I'm not going to carry the pain forward. That was for somebody. That was for somebody who didn't realize that you don't have to carry the whole situation all together. You can take the lessons, but you can leave the pain. You can say, I'm not going to be hurt over this or frustrated over this or disappointed or worried another day. I'm going to leave all of those negative emotions at the altar. Like, that's what I'm taking to the altar. And I'm going to take the lesson with me so I don't have to go through it again if I don't got to. Unless it's God ordained. Well, I don't want to go through it again. But I can take those pieces with me. Does that make sense? And so resilience, the ability to spring back into shape. One of the powerful things about that is you got to know the shape before so it can spring back to that. Sometimes the adversity and how we've responded to things in our lives, we think that shape is who we are until we spend enough time in the Word to realize that that's not who you were created to be. You weren't created for struggle. No, not long term, not as a lifestyle. Certainly suffering is a part of the journey, but not as a lifestyle, as a season, And so, or depression or anxiety or insecurity or overwhelm, those things, that's not the shape that God shaped you when he made you, when the Elohim, God created you. Right? That wasn't the shape that he put you in. And so some of you, I really want you to take inventory today when we talk about being resilient and going back to the shape that God shaped you before your trials and adversity came. Some of you even say, I don't know what that is. I don't even know what that looks like. This is all I can remember. This is all I know. Then you got to go back and spend time in the Word and say, tell me how you shaped me. I'm right now, the shape of my heart, the shape of my mind is, insecurity, lack of confidence, little confusion because I'm not really sure about my purpose, struggle, honey. I'm trying to get these dollars to come together, but they won't go. They just, they meet, but they don't overlap like John 10:10 tells me they should, that I have plenty. What is the original shape that God needs to return you to? And as you go into 2020, I want you to think about very specifically the adversities that you have faced and how have they taken you out of shape? Because I guarantee that's going to give you a very clear picture of what the enemy's trying to do in you. Some of you are created to be the first, maybe millionaire or wealthy person in your family. And so you've been attacked in the area of your finances, of your stewardship. And it's a direct indication of what God is trying to do in you. And so you got to go back to the Word now and see that you were originally shaped for abundance, for more than enough, that you serve a God of more than enough. And then you say, okay, I'm going to become more resilient in this area. And I'm going to allow God to spring me back into the place of abundance. Watch this, watch this. Even if you've never actually experienced it in the flesh yet, it has already been spoken over you before the foundation of the world. So you're still going back to your original shape. Are you catching that? Are you catching that? Because for some of you, the thing that God wants to do in you and the place he wants to take you back to, you haven't experienced it yet. You haven't. But it's still him taking you back to who you were before the trauma, before the disappointment, before what they spoke over your life, before what you accepted about you. It's still taking you back to that place. Resilience. We're talking about resilience today. And let me say this, when we talk about building your resilience muscle, one of the most powerful tools I have found is my ability to speak to me and to talk to me and to make sure that I am guiding my mind to where it needs to be, my mindset, that I set it where it needs to be. Philippians tells us that whatsoever things are true, are lovely, if there be any praise, right? Think on these things. I have to tell you, when you are building your resilience muscle, you are coming through adversity, you have to daily tell your mind, this is what we're thinking about today. Nope. We're not focusing on the negativity. We know, I know that's going on, but I'm focusing on this. You realize that you have to think about what you think about, right? I don't know you hear it so much, but you have to make a decision to stand at the gate of your mind and decide what thoughts are coming through and what thoughts are just not coming through. And so when you are in the midst of adversity and building that resilience, you have to even tell your mind how you're going to view the situation. Oh my goodness. One of my favorite shows, my son kind of laughs at me a little bit because it makes me very weepy and a little emotional. Okay, a lot emotional. I love watching Long Lost Family. Anybody ever seen Long Lost Family? Type in the chat, let me know if you've seen Long Lost Family. It's one of my absolute favorite. Well, I don't know if it's a favorite, but I've been binge watching it like crazy, right? But here's the thing that's interesting is that 9 times out of 10, the version of the story that they were told about their adoption or whatever is just very far from the actual story. There may be pieces that were true, but it's missing so much that it's still basically not true. And so they have, a lot of them have shaped their lives around what they knew of their adoption, why they thought they were given up. I mean, there have been episodes where, this one guy, he thought that his mom got married and just didn't want him anymore and gave him up, only to find out that that was not the case at all and that she actually fought because she wanted to keep him. And unfortunately, it just didn't happen. But there's so many examples like that where the people thought, that they just weren't wanted and they just weren't loved. And as soon as they got the rest of the story, they realized that wasn't true at all. And so what am I saying? I'm saying really make sure and seek God to make sure you're viewing this situation the way that it should be viewed. Because oftentimes we respond and then our hearts are discouraged thinking one thing, only for you to find out that wasn't the case. That's not how it happened at all. And now you can have a proper perspective and allow your heart and your spirit to heal and to respond from a different place, But even before you have additional information or you may know more, give yourself the grace to say, this is all I know about this situation. Maybe this person's mistreating me. Maybe something isn't going the way I think it should go, but I don't know all the facts. There's something that I don't know. And so I'm going to going to give myself grace. I'm going to give the situation grace and not respond from an angry, hateful place. The enemy will always make you think they trying to get you, or, you won't be blessed. And only for you to later discover that that's not the case. All right. So make sure when it comes to building your resilience muscle that you allow God to shape how you view the situation. Because I know for me that there have been times where I finally got more information or learned something new, and it maybe about the person, maybe about their life experience, or just something I just didn't know. And it totally shaped how I felt in my heart and how I felt in my spirit. And it was like, wow, if I had known that the whole time, I could have responded in my heart and my spirit, or even in my actions, differently to this situation. Okay. And so that's all I got. I don't want to belabor the point today. I just want you today to think about your resilience muscle. How can you, number one, bounce back from everything that 2019 threw at you? Some of you, this may not be as applicable for, but some of you have really gone through some serious challenges, some serious adversity. This has been a shaping year for you. God has either led you into the fire or allowed you to be in the fire. Some of you walked yourself into the fire and God was still with you. He said, I'll use this to shape you and for my glory. But some of you have really been through some trials that have left some marks on you this year. And so I want you to take a moment now to really think about bounce back and being more resilient. How can I allow God to transform me back into the shape that I was? My spirit, my heart, my mind. Maybe that's back to the level of joy that you had before. Maybe it's back to the level of faith that you had before. Maybe it's back to the level of hope, dreaming again about the things that you let go because you tried a couple times and it didn't work out. And God said, nope, this time you're going to try it with me and with me in charge, and it's going to work out. And so I'm speaking and declaring over that you right now that as you go into 2020, you will go back resiliently, transformed back into who you were before everything 2019 brought. I'll encourage you to spend time in the presence of God. Allow him to wash you, to clean you. We're not just talking about of sin, but of what life has brought, of the disappointment, of the frustration, of the weariness, of the fatigue. Go into 2020 strong in heart, strong in spirit, courageous, full of faith. Tell your neighbor, it's time to bounce back. It's time to bounce back. It's time to bounce back. That's what I want to leave you with. It's time to bounce back. I'm coming back. I'm coming back stronger. I'm coming back wiser. I'm coming back with new information that I can use in my next trial. I'm coming back more determined. I'm coming back more focused. I'm coming back more compassionate, because since I've gone through that, I realized, oh, that's why some of those people behave that way. I'm going to respond to them a little bit differently. Yeah, I'm coming back more patient. I'm coming back more loving, but you are coming back. And that's what I want to declare over you right now, that you're coming back. Even in this moment, my prayer and my decree is that God will begin speaking to your heart, that God will begin speaking to those places where you need ministry in your mind. Some of you, for those of you who haven't been sleeping well, I'm decreeing and declaring that it is your time to bounce back. And the same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead is going to resurrect everything in you that has died, that's dying, that is quickening back to life, that this is your season. And this is your time to bounce back. All right, guys. So I hope you take that in. I Love you to pieces. I so appreciate you watching or listening or doing both, depending on where you're viewing this podcast. And I'm excited about this series. We're going to continue this into the new year. Listen, come on into the after party. Come on over to my private Facebook group. You can type in kingdombosslive.com. It'll bring you to the group. Simply ask to join and share your opinion. Tell us what you think, or even come on in and make a bold declaration about what you are bouncing back from. I am bouncing back, or let's do it this way. What we're bouncing back into. I am bouncing back into life. I am bouncing back into greater joy. I am bouncing back into more prosperity. I'm bouncing back into more peace. I'm bouncing back into more health. I'm bouncing back into victory. What are you bouncing back into today? All right, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this. And I think I've done pretty good, because preachers, they say, usually have 5 closes. And I feel like I've only done about 3 today. But this is the real one. I hope that you guys have absolutely enjoyed this. And I so look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. All right, bye-bye.